And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Reno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley, episode 94 of the Top Dog Talk podcast. Dan, before we get into the show, which is loaded more than usual, actually, the show notes are a thick, I think, almost 4 pages long. We got a lot to get into in a short amount of time. We don't like to keep you held on here for very long. But hey, let's hop right on into it. Want to thank you real quick for last week's video. We had set a new PR in views on YouTube. Yeah, keep doing it. Guys, I saw 85% of our viewers from last show were not subscribed, so make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for more Georgia football content. We cover just about everything regards to Georgia football, even those in the NFL these days, as we're going to get into a little bit here today. Dan, hot topic number one is what was your worst college football take from this past season or 2022?
All right, so what I'm going to start with on my worst take is I made the argument that USC was going to be in the college football playoff. Now, let me just say, they were in the argument, right? But where I really got it wrong was I said that there was no way they were going to lose to Utah. I said they wouldn't, and they did. They got beat. I can't remember what the score was. I wrote it down. It was 47-24. Utah beat USC. So not only was I wrong about that, but I was really wrong about that. But I had a really good year last year. I didn't feel like I got a whole lot of stuff wrong. That was wrong for me. But the biggest thing that I got wrong, and I still consider this last year, Harrison, maybe you don't, but I do. I said by the beginning of this year, one of the Georgia quarterbacks would transfer. And I'm bringing this back to Georgia, a Georgia topic, because that's the one thing I got wrong. And I think a lot of people did too. But I really felt like, once they got through spring, somebody would know that they were the starter and somebody would leave. So my 2022 going into 2023, worst thing, I said that USC wouldn't lose to Utah. I got that wrong. But even bigger than that, a much bigger miss on my part, and kudos to the kids at Georgia, is I really thought a quarterback would leave. And they are not leaving. They're staying and they're battling it out. Maybe eventually one does leave at some point, but they stuck it out, and I was 100% wrong. That is something that I got wrong, Harrison. So that's a big one for me, and I think Georgia's the benefit of that, because now they've got 3 really, really good quarterbacks to compete for this year. And moving forward, they have a really loaded quarterback room. So that's my big whiff.
Hey, Dan, my big whiff is one that we discussed about this time probably last year. A&M finishing second in the West. That was an atrocious pick. Atrocious pick. And it was low-bearing fruit. It's low-bearing fruit because, I mean, they've been crapped on all offseason. Last offseason, they were the talk of the town, the talk of the SEC, and mostly because Jimbo Fisher wanted to be the talk of the town going after Nick Saban, which I still don't understand what all, started that. Obviously, it was that booster. I guess Saban talking to Booster started that. But, hey, Jimbo had to come off the top ropes, and it really didn't end well for him this season. Now he's on the hot seat. So, yeah, Texas A&M, second in the West, an atrocious pick, bad pick. Not making that mistake again. LSU right now is my pick to finish second, but I am not holding my breath that they've. I mean, shoot, you can convince me that LSU will win the SEC West. There is a case to be made. They have a lot of talent returning. I still got my questions, but there is a chance that they can win the West this year over Alabama. Dan, that's what I missed on this one, sir. And it's time for your blind draft. It is the 3rd edition of the Talk Blind Draft. I like it so far. Shout out again to the boys over at the Real Talk UGA for the idea. Something that I've watched their content, enjoyed their content. I was like, hey, credit to them, all credit to them for this topic. And I wanted to see, give me and Dan and I something, a little change up, a little something fun to do each week. Here not over and over again, but we'll try it here. Dan, your blind draft this week is you're going to rank the Georgia football, the best Georgia football teams of all time.
Oh,
now
hell.
I've picked 8 teams. 8 teams. Now, hold up. I will transition into present mode. Give me a minute. For folks listening on podcast, this is going to be fun. So you can see, Dan, let me know. How does that look on the screen? Do I need to zoom in?
That looks good. We're good.
That looks good. All right, Dan. First team, 2017 Georgia, 1 through 8. Where are you putting the 2017 Georgia team? If you need me to refresh you on what each team or what a certain team did, I have some notes here to remind you.
That was the second year of Kirby lost to Alabama national championship game, correct?
Yes, sir.
I am going to go number 3. No, wait, hold on. Oh man, I don't know if you have. I don't know what teams you have in here. Oh, I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go 4 because I'm hoping. Okay, I'm gonna go 4.
Hey, remember, folks, if you're new to us, Dan does not know what's coming. Dan didn't even know the topic until I just told him here live. So this is all genuine reactions and off the top of the head. Dan has no clue what's coming next for those that are new. Dan, 2007 Georgia team. This is the Sugar Bowl winner. What folks say probably should have won the championship. Yep.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go number 3 on that one. That's why I moved 17 down to 4 because I was hoping you would have that one in there. Got it.
Next, 2002 Georgia, 13-1 Sugar Bowl win. Where are you putting them?
5. Oh wait, 6. Put them in 6.
6.
Sorry, 6.
Next up. 19,
I just realized. I
jumped ahead of myself.
I just realized I screwed myself.
Next up, 2021 Georgia, 14-1 national championship. Explains itself. Where you want
them? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 2.
1980 Georgia national championship team.
I mean, if you don't have 2022 Georgia in there, I'm absolutely screwed here. I mean, if we're being honest, all of the Georgia teams ahead of them so far could beat them. So I'm going to go 5.
All right, Dan. 2010 Georgia, 6-7, only losing season that Georgia's had this century.
8.
No explanation needed. Next up, your undefeated perfect season 2022 Georgia Bulldogs. I don't even need to ask. All right, last team, 2015 Georgia. As Jonathan said down here in the comments, 7th spot for you, Dan. Are you satisfied?
Tell me what 2015 did.
2015 was 10-3 the last year, Coach Rick.
Oh yeah.
Which record was a lot better than that year, than many remember that year.
See, I think we're okay because I mean, listen, times change. If you're talking about the 1980 team, they had a good defense and they were really led by that defense in a strong running game. But if you look at those top teams up there, those defenses were absolutely stout. I don't think that those defenses would have a problem. Everybody had a problem stopping Herschel Walker, but I think those teams are better. I'm not. I mean, listen. Some people are going to say that 1980 is number 1, right? Some people are going to say that, but I mean, if we're being realistic, these guys are so much bigger and faster. I'm really not that upset about it. I mean, maybe 1980 Georgia should be number 3 and everybody else moves down. But I also told you I screwed myself immediately whenever I put 07 and 17, and I was like, oh crap, didn't leave room for 80. But I think I'm okay.
What I learned is I need to put some curveballs early so we can get the trash up higher. Because this actually turned out very beautiful for Dan. I know this will cause controversy, but these last 2, Dan, are undisputed where everybody will put them. So kudos to you on that one. You aced that test. Dan, let's actually time for your rant. I was actually skipping a page there. Dan, your rant this week. We've talked. It's related to last week, so I'm gonna let you take it away.
All right. So my rant for this week, and Zach's in here. We see Jonathan's in here. Jeremiah's in here, but Rudes is not in here, and this is his favorite part of the show. But I dedicate all of my rants to Rudes. But this one, listen, okay, I understand economics. I understand how things work, but this one just really makes me frustrated. And if you will allow me to get to the point, you will understand. But my rant is the secondary markets. And the secondary markets are completely destroying the next generation of fans in the United States of America and around the world. And if you don't understand what a secondary market is, I think most everybody does. Just for those who may not understand exactly what I'm talking about, is let's just say the Atlanta Braves sell their season tickets or they sell their tickets, right? So people buy the tickets, but they don't buy them with the intent of going to the games and having a good time. They buy them so that they can turn around and sell them. And obviously, we know that there is a finite number of tickets to anything, right? Because eventually it's going to be a sellout. And if you have a good product, like Georgia has a good product, like the Braves have a good product, the Falcons do not have a good product right now. I'm not saying that they're not going to have a good product, but they don't. So, like the secondary market, those people are losing money on the Falcons tickets. But for Georgia, people are buying up these tickets in bunches, as much as they possibly can, so they can turn around and sell them on the secondary market. I get wanting to make a profit. I get wanting to make money, and I get it. Scalpers have been around forever and ever, amen. But what it's doing is it's phasing out the real fans. It's phasing out the families. And you say, I don't care about the families. Okay, well, you should care about the families, because who grows up to be Georgia fans? Who grows up to want to go to the University of Georgia? Who goes to the University of Georgia, ends up making a lot of money and donates back to a school? Those are kids right now, right? That next generation are kids. What's the secondary market is doing is prohibiting a family man who works, and now with the price of everything going up, right? It prohibits them from buying tickets and taking their family to a game. You know, most all of us, if you think about it, some of your earliest memories of being a Georgia fan, right, are going to the games with your folks, with your parents, with maybe with a bigger brother or an uncle, or somebody took you to a Georgia game when you were a child. And it was the first time that you walked into the stadium and you saw it, and it was so much different than television, and you could not believe it. You were like, oh my gosh, this is so great. You heard the Georgia Bulldogs across the stadium, and it was just the first time you heard the, go Sick'em on the kickoffs. It was the first time you saw everything. The taste of that hot dog in a Braves game for the first time, the cotton candy, your dad getting your Cracker Jacks, getting a hat, getting a pennant back in the day. And you probably don't know what pennants are. You guys are too little, but getting the ice cream in the cup hat. You remember the hat that was a cup, right? All those experiences that you remember for the rest of your life. So many kids are not being afforded the opportunity because of the secondary market is driving up the prices so high that you're not allowed to take, or it's not that you're not allowed. It's just most working families can't afford to take their young kids. And Jeremiah, or who was it who just posted that? You took it down before I could see it. Jonathan saying selling a ticket you paid $10 for $200. He's exactly right. Where, ticket prices are up to begin with. Like, even if you were to buy them at face value from Georgia, I think they're $125 for lower seats, right? So, you got 4 tickets. You're talking about $500 for 4 tickets to take a family. I mean, maybe you have it like that, but I don't, and it's difficult to do. But that's if you were to buy it from the school. Now you're talking about secondary market where those tickets are $250, right? Maybe $300, like they were talking about. Now, if they're, just say for simple math, those are $200, and you're talking about buying 4 tickets, you're talking about $800, right? I mean, I don't know a lot of families that can afford a family afford to go to a game for $400 or $800 and then pay $50 for parking. And now the price of concession. My issue is that everybody is being priced out. The younger generation is being priced out, and we're not seeing any negative repercussions right now. But I fear that eventually down the road, a whole brand new generation of dog fans, Georgia fans, Alabama fans, Auburn fans, whatever the case may be, they're not going to be as passionate because they're not going to have the memories that you and I have.
Sorry about that, Dan. I had an alarm go off for some reason. I guess when I don't know why.
You were telling me to wrap it up.
Oh, no. My bad on that one, guys. Dan, yeah. Secondary markets are ridiculous. I know secondary market for that Georgia-Tennessee game is going to be hot. I want to go to that game, but like Dan said, unless you buy them or get them through, being a season ticket holder at Georgia or Tennessee, you ain't gonna be getting them cheaply. Dan, want to take a moment. Make sure you guys to like and subscribe. Over 80% of the views of y'all are not subscribed, so make sure to like, subscribe. We have a loaded season coming for you. We are going to be consistent. We're going to be here every Tuesday, 7:30 to the best of our ability. I cannot promise that we are going to be live all the time because, hey, life happens. But Dan and I are committed to getting a show out each week, whether it's live, recorded, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute. We will be here for you covering all things Georgia football. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. Dan, dogs in the NFL, my friend.
All right, so this is a new segment that Harrison wanted to debut today. And, we focus primarily on what's going on at school, but we do want to shed a little bit of light when something positive is happening to a former Georgia player in the NFL. And I'm going to start it off with Andrew Thomas. If you haven't been paying attention, if you've been asleep under a rock, Andrew Thomas was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, if I'm not mistaken, and he is now on to his second contract. He just signed a 5-year contract extension, $67 million, fully guaranteed at signing, and $117.5 million through 2029. He is now the highest paid offensive tackle in the NFL. Congratulations to Andrew Thomas. Well deserved. We had a feeling that he was going to be a great NFL offensive lineman. He was a day one absolute beast stud at University of Georgia. He's been great in the NFL, and he is just further proof that NFL money is way better than NIL money. So congratulations, Andrew Thomas. Harrison, who do you have next?
Dan, I real quick, I did want to hit on that. Dude, when you think about it, like, he started the pipeline, of 5-star recruits coming into Georgia under Kirby Smart and going to the NFL. Started that. True freshman started on that 2017 team. Congrats to him. Like Dan said, NFL greater than NIL. Dan, Stetson Bennett. Tell me if you heard this before, but a certain rookie on the Los Angeles Rams is impressing early into training camp. Right now, that's Stetson Bennett. And we actually do have a clip here that we want to show you. There's been multiple Stetson Bennett clips. I wanted to choose just one. There's been one of his deep ball, which is, he absolutely amazing. Throws a touchdown. The Rams have been posting him. There's another one, another touchdown. Cooper Kupp with the Rams first team. But the one I wanted to highlight, Dan, and it's one I think is getting misconstrued, is the one with him throwing a ball on the run to Demarcus Robinson. I'm going to show it here. Credit to the Rams on their Twitter, their social media for the video here. Look, this guy's few days into camp, few days in training camp, getting hold of the playbook. You see a little play action here. I believe his play action may have gotten pressured out of the pocket. But look, it's not the throw that's impressive. The throw's good.
Throw's fine.
Throw's fine. And the catch is amazing. But the directing traffic downfield as a rookie to a veteran, Demarcus Robinson, that's, what they're looking for. Sean McVay came out, the head coach of the Rams came out a few days later, said Bennett had the best day of camp so far for the Rams. And hey, that's probably why he's on the highlights reel right now. Dan.
Hey, listen, nothing's changed for Stetson Bennett. He's transitioning seamlessly. We wish nothing but the best for him. And, listen, what was he great at Georgia about? Improvising, making adjustments on the fly. And I think his skill set absolutely translates to the NFL. Size doesn't seem to be a problem. Good for him. I'm happy for him. And I think he has a great opportunity to play. And I think he's in a great position to be very, very successful. You got the next one, brother.
Oh, my bad. We kind of rehearsed as we talked about it, but hey, it's a new segment. We're a little rusty. George Pickens. Funny thing about this, Dan. Last night I sat down to watch the Steelers offense, specifically to watch George Pickens. And a day later, he comes out and makes a play like that. Now, granted, the reason I went to go watch him was because obviously he did an interview the other day saying he's the best receiver in the NFL, which, there's definitely going to be some people that deny him and say, no, this guy's better. And hey, there's certainly cases out there that there are maybe, a few better than him. But hey, upside wise, I would safe bet. I think George Pickens can be one of the best in the NFL. And hey, it's that time of the year again where George Pickens is making headlines, making tweets. Just getting everybody clout because he's making catches like this. Like the circus catch when he was a freshman at Georgia in fall camp. Watch this. Dan, this is what we've seen from GP 14 for years now. It's not a surprise to Georgia fans. You throw it to him, he's going to go get it. Hey, he dunks on the poor rookie, Joey Porter Jr., first-round pick, I believe it was. No, maybe a second-round pick. Dunks on him, one-hand catch. OBJ's it. Then gets up and kind of lets him know, like, hey, I'm here. I'm George Pickens. I'm him. Not surprising to say the least.
No, I think the one thing that we've all come to learn about George Pickens is he's a highlight reel. I mean, if you wanted to make an argument about him, or if you wanted to give Levy any type of criticism on him, is maybe he's not the most consistent guy in the world, but God Almighty, when he can make plays like nobody else can make plays, that guy's absolutely ridiculously talented. And if he puts in the work, and it seems like he is right now, it really does. Like all the feedback coming out of the Steelers campus, he is putting in the work, because we know if he puts in the work and he becomes more consistent, he could just he could go straight to the top as being one of the best receivers in the NFL, because he has got that talent. So, do you have anything else on that, or are you good on that one?
I'm good,
All
brother.
right. So the last one that we're going to highlight is the one that I know everybody's become really near and dear to your heart, is the Philly Dogs, right? So a lot of noise has been coming out about the Philly Dogs, how they have a group chat and they communicate with each other. They help each other. It's like a small little fraternity inside of a bigger fraternity where they help each other. They rely on each other. They're just looking out for one another. You're like, who can house sit? Who can watch your dogs for you? Where's a good place to go eat? Where do you need to stay away from? I think it's really, really awesome that they're doing this for one another. Jalen Carter having a great camp. And then the one guy who's really starting to turn heads, and you didn't have this down here, but Nolan Smith people have been praising about Nolan Smith and his work ethic, but that's not something that we really didn't know already, because, the one thing that would always come out is the guy was a worker. He's willing to work. Maybe his production didn't match what the effort he was giving early in his career, but the last 2 years he was at University of Georgia. He was 100% a leader, an emotional leader, a physical leader, and his production was top level, good enough to be drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. And then obviously you have DeAndre Swift coming in, and with him, it's just you got to stay healthy. But I just think it's so awesome that we have all of these dogs together in Philadelphia, and they are looking out for one another. And I think that says a lot about Georgia as well, that, these guys go to the next level and they're still connected that way. And Kirby said that these guys were more connected than anybody he's ever been around in his entire life, the group, and you love to see it continue to the next level. So I think just highlighting some of these dogs that are doing great things in the next level is a really good idea from you, Stetson, or from you, Harrison. And I hope you enjoy hearing about guys like Stetson and Andrew and Pickens and the Philly Dogs, and there are plenty more. So if we hear something good, we're going to drop it to you.
Absolutely. Hey, might not be every week, but because some weeks are slower than others. But yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift, if he's healthy, that could be a scary sight in Philly. That RPO offense going to be scary with Jalen Hurts, potentially being able to keep it or hand it off to DeAndre Swift, or just throw a slant to AJ Brown across the middle and hope he breaks a tackle. And boom, there you go. Dan, fall camp. That's what everyone's here to talk about. I believe it starts tomorrow in Athens. First day, at least from what I've heard players talk about, is really just meetings, expectation setting. It's, Kirby Smart's going to go in there probably with presentations, say, here's the expectations, here's the rules, here's your curfew, here's the schedule. Look at it, memorize it, know it, live it, love it. Maybe not love it, but they're definitely going to live it. So, hey, I'm not expecting to hear anything other than maybe the team's mentality reports of that coming out of the first day. I believe it is Wednesday, is their first day back. And hey, that's the perk of being a Tuesday show. Just get a little preview of fall camp. Dan, we got some position battles to talk about, among them being quarterback. The title of it is the quarterback position battle solved. I think if you were to poll the audience, which we can, I think the unanimous choice would be Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck, there is quiet confidence in Athens. There is quiet confidence surrounding Athens and the media that he's the starting quarterback. And, I mean, there's really been nothing to say he's not. But as we know, Dan, that doesn't mean he's not going to compete. That doesn't mean Brock Vandagriff and Stockton aren't going to push him to be his very best. And as we've seen over and over again, if somebody doesn't play to the standard, they don't last long in Athens.
Well, yeah, and I think the one thing that you can say has been very consistent about Kirby is he doesn't like to give you any information at all, right? So I think we can all make the assumption that Carson Beck is the quarterback, but I do feel like, and this is, just hypothetical because I don't think this is going to happen, but just go out and say that Carson does not have a good fall camp and he or Beck has just improved, or Vandegrift has improved just tremendously, and now all of a sudden he's a completely different player when he shows back up. I mean, all those things could happen. And you wouldn't want to pigeonhole yourself if you're Kirby Smart and say, hey, Carson Beck's my starter. And then like 2 weeks into camp, you're like, holy hell, Brock is so much better than Carson Beck, and we're going to play him. Now you're going to make everybody look foolish. And, you're like, oh my gosh, he's taking his job. Like, but if you don't name a starter and then all of a sudden you trot, Gunnar Stockton out there the first week and say, oh yeah, he's our starter. He was the best quarterback in camp. Like, okay, well, I mean, he didn't say that he wasn't, right? He never said who was or who wasn't. So, and this is not, Georgia specific. This is a lot of different places. If you don't have a returning starter who is clearing away the starter, like nobody was going to say that Bryce Young wasn't going to be the starter at Alabama last year. Okay. I mean, it would be silly for Saban to go, no, it's an open competition. I mean, maybe he did say that. I don't know. I didn't pay attention, but everybody knew that he is. And I think everybody knows that Carson Beck is going to be a starter. I expect great things out of him this year, but you know what, if he's not, Kirby hasn't pigeonholed himself. So, and to be completely honest with you, Harrison, I doubt that he names the starter. I think whoever trots out there on the field first is the starter.
I wouldn't be shocked if that. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it's we haven't decided yet, or I'm going to keep that close to the vest. What is his answer? Because he's going. Oh wait.
Hasn't he said the guys know who the starter is, or hasn't he said something like that? Like the team knows who the starter is. Like I
have not heard that. But I mean, I don't even know. He's going to be asked at fall camp. He's going to have a press conference at some point. Somebody's going to ask him who's the starter. I can't even think. He's probably going to say something along the lines of we're constantly evaluating week to week. It's probably going to be his answer. But we'll see. Dan, and it's a pretty common prediction right now. I think there is confidence in Georgia's fan base and the media that Carson Beck is going to show out. Like whoever the starters is going to be, is going to have a good year. We do know that Kirby Winterfeller's, you see him and Muschamp do yoga, the giveaway info. Yeah.
That's a great comment, Zach.
Yeah. I mean, it's not wrong. You definitely got some huffing and puffing from the people that were at that open practice for Georgia versus Ohio State. Media were not happy about that one. But yeah, I feel quite confident right now. I think Carson Beck's in like the 6 to 10 quarterback ranking range. When you talk about these pre-draft rankings of like who's the top quarterback 2024, I am very confident that by the end of the season, and it's not a hot take, he will be top 5, maybe even top 3. From the limited things we've seen of him, he's played well. He's shown the traits to be an NFL quarterback. I don't see him coming back for another year. It is possible, but this is, at the territory of Georgia's going to start to get the train going of we're going to have a quarterback coming in here who sat behind, learn the offense. He's been in here for 3 years now. He's going to play 15 games, hopefully, and then leave for the NFL draft and be a first-round pick. That's the expectation right now. And yes, it is high for somebody who's never started a college game, but Beck's already shown us that he can handle the pressure. I mean, you go look at his stats this year, Dan, and the games that he's played, he's been highly efficient with the football, has taken care of the football. You look for things in a young quarterback, like, his eyes being connected with his legs. He throws from a really good base. Every time he throws the football, his legs are with his eyes. Really good signs, live arm, really like his arm. I'm really excited to see him slinging around like Stetson Bennett slinging insurance in the NFL right now in training camp. I have no doubts with Carson Beck. I have no doubts that whoever this quarterback's going to be will continue where Stetson Bennett left off.
Yeah, I think we're going to be just fine at the quarterback position. But let's transition from the quarterback position, which I think we're fairly certain in, right? Let's transition to which freshmen get early reps. Now, listen, this is difficult. Harrison, you did a really good job of putting a list together, but when we were doing our pre-show meeting, we were talking and we're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. Oh, I forgot about that guy. And if you go look at the class that Georgia signed, I mean, you have to get like 10 or 15 guys, 17 guys down before you're out of the 4 stars, right? Or 8, whatever. So you have like so many high-level players that are going to get early reps. At the quarterback position, obviously, which we just got done talking about, you're not probably going to have a young guy immediately step in and get reps. I mean, we'll find out next year what happens there, but with the other true freshmen, especially on defense, I feel like a lot of these guys are going to have an opportunity to take a bite at that apple. There's some players on here. I'll let you kind of go through some of them first, Harrison, because I know that you put this list together, and I'm going to chime in on this. But the one area that you didn't put names down, and I was going to hit that real quick before you get into these names, is the wide receivers. And if you listened at all to Buck Belue, he likes Tyler Williams, the wide receiver. I guess he's like a track star. It says right here he is 6'3", 200 pounds. So he's a big dude. And, it always seems like to me, at least out of the wide receiver / tight end position, somebody young gets an opportunity. We saw it with A.D. Mitchell. We saw it last year with, who am I forgetting? A young guy last year. Or was it
Dylan Bell?
Dylan Bell gets some run. I mean, so it's always a young guy. Maybe Tyler Williams gets the first crack at that. Yazid Haynes or whatever is another guy there was a lot of hype about. But Harrison, kind of go over the list of the defensive players you jotted down.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, and I think it's maybe low-hanging fruit at this point because I think everybody knows his name. If you're a Georgia fan, you know his name. Jonel Aguero. I believe he was a 5-star coming out of high school. DB. Sounds like he's going to play star at Georgia, which is a hard position to play and get on the field right away. Not many have done it. But it's kind of coming into the point where Georgia has so many dudes at DB that I think can probably play from day one if they need him to. I think Jonel Aguero is going to see the field. I mean, there's just buzz coming out of spring that he was transitioning, making the transition, learning the position. I wouldn't be surprised if he was safety. They got a lot of these guys can play everywhere in the field for Georgia. Like, they're interchangeable. A.J. Harris is another guy, Dan, that you brought up that we added on here that I completely forgot about. Because you look at the two deep that we kind of created here before the show, you're left wondering, like, hey, is Kirby going to give the start to Nyland Green, the guy who's been in the room for a few years now? And that's what he's done. Seniority over newcomer. He's given the senior player the chances, every opportunity to win and run away with the starting job until they get beaten out. And I think that's the right way to do it. It rewards loyalty. It rewards people who don't just hop in the portal and take it and, go the easy way of finding playing time. He's rewarding those guys by giving them a chance until they lose it. A.J. Harris is a guy, if he gets on the field as a freshman, if Jonel Aguero gets on the field as a freshman, playing in Georgia secondary, they're studs. Absolute studs.
Yeah, and I mean, to top it off, like you talked about the secondary guys, but then did you mention Damian Wilson coming off the edge? I mean, that's the next spot, right? I mean, that's Damian Wilson coming off the edge, C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, the linebackers. The one name that I added was Troy Bowles. I mean, I remember during the recruiting process, obviously his dad is Todd Bowles, that he's extremely intelligent. And what is one of the first things that we heard about a linebacker out of Mississippi named Nakobe Dean? Is that he was extremely intelligent, extremely instinctual, and that he was reacting to the play before anybody else was. And that never changed, right? I mean, that was why, I mean, some of the knock on him was obviously size, but the other one was that he wasn't very fast, right? Straight line fast. Did you ever see that bother Nakobe Dean in college? Because I sure as hell didn't. But if you look at Troy Bowles, that's one of the things that they say about him is how instinctual. I mean, obviously C.J. Allen's an absolute stud. We've heard a lot about him. And then
Raylan Wilson's the track star.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've got Jordan Hall up front, the defensive tackle, and then Big Ja. I mean, there's so many, and this is an exercise that I thought was going to be pretty easy, and we were just going to have one or two names like, oh, this guy's going to contribute early, but literally, like, go through the list, like. I mean, it's like rolling dice because any one of those guys could play because they're all so damn talented. I mean, it's the world that we live in now, is that some of these guys are going to have to wait their turn because Georgia's so deep, but they are all so talented that you can make an argument for so many different guys to get the crack early. But I think if you have to just say one name, I think Jonel Aguero is probably the first one because, I mean, he was like 1-2 with Caleb Downs, and Caleb Downs at Alabama, a lot of people are saying he's the best player on the field already, and he's only a freshman. So, and if he was right there with him, you would have to think that he's going to have an opportunity to play. They did not shy away from letting Malachi Starks play early last year. That was my big banging the gavel last year, telling everybody that he was going to play early. And I got a little bit of pushback on that. And, then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, I knew he'd play early. I'm like, did you though? Because all of you were saying that they weren't going to. But I think he's just one of those guys too. I mean, some guys are just so damn good you can't keep them off the field. And Kirby and his entire staff, regardless of position outside of quarterback, they find a way to get the young guys on the field one way or another, right? They don't, I mean, if you can play, they find a way for you to contribute, and whether it be special teams or any other place. But a lot of these guys are going to be on the field early. And I think that's just a wonderful place for Georgia to be right now.
Absolutely. And I want to get into some position battles specifically. We've already mentioned the young guys. And I've already kind of hinted at the seniority over kind of the young guys. It's, the vets versus the rookie sophomores type deal. Right off the bat, let's get into left tackle, Dan. Let's get in down and dirty. Austin Blaske versus Ernest Green. I think that's the matchup there, the competition there at left tackle. Obviously, if Amarius Mims wants to transition, can transition to left tackle, no question he's going to be a starter. Right now, I have him listed on the 2D depth chart we created at right tackle, but I think that's Ernest Green versus Austin Blaske. We know how talented Ernest Green is. People said that Ernest Green was ready to play last year, if not for if not for the injury. Austin Blaske's the veteran, though. He's been here. He's learned the system. A guy that, our friend Brooks is high on, said he can play football, and there's confidence in him. How is that going to turn out? If I had to guess, and I'm no insider, I would assume that the vet Austin Blaske will start the year. And like we said, until he's beaten out or until he, shows that, hey, even with, a valued recruit coming out of high school, in Ernest Green, I'm not going to be beaten out. So I'm going with Blaske and my dog's barking. So Dan, take over.
Well, I think you're probably right. I mean, one of those two guys will get a start, but at some point, does one of the young guys, whether it be Freeling or Bo Hughley, does either one of those guys even have a shot to get into the rotation early as a freshman? I mean, we saw Andrew Thomas do it, and he did a great job. And the other thing is with Mims, I don't, like you said, maybe he stays at the right, but I don't know. And I don't know enough about the offensive line to be an expert on that, right? I'm not an offensive lineman, but I mean, they're going to be really good up front. Guys, all of these guys can play, so I'll be interested to see exactly how that shakes out. But go ahead, Harrison, and tell me about this battle of the X the way you see it.
Okay, so this is another one. It's not a newcomer. It's a newcomer to Georgia, but not a newcomer in experience. It's Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint versus Rawa Thomas. Now look, Rawa Thomas did not play in the spring game, if I remember correctly. Did not do it. And Kirby Smart came out and said that he had some things he needed to work on in order to get on the field. And I believe I'm assuming one of them was the public. Now, I don't want to make a reckless assumption like that. But Smart said, I believe verbatim, that he had some things he needed to work on before he got on the field in that capacity. So right now, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint is that guy. I think there's a lot of confidence in fans that, after playing the X last year with Adonai Mitchell out for so long, Rosemy-Jacksaint can do it. This guy was supremely talented coming out of high school, highly touted. He's a 4-star recruit. I mean, this kid was wanted out of high school, and we saw flashes in as a freshman. I mean, right up until that leg break, in that Florida game, he was looking good. And has come back from that, battled back from that injury, has found a role in this Georgia team, really good blocker, excellent on the perimeter as a blocker. But he developed some chemistry with Stetson Bennett last year, and I'm curious to see, how he does this year. What I really want to see from him, Dan, is can he go over the top and beat a guy? Like, the thing with George Pickens that made George Pickens so elite, and Georgia fans know this, is he may not get a lot of separations because he's not a burner. He's not going to run right by you like Arian Smith. But you throw up a 50-50 ball to George Pickens, it's almost a 60-40, maybe 70-30 at this point in the NFL that George Pickens come down with that. I want to see Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint make those big-time plays that A.D. Mitchell made, that George Pickens made. I want to see, those because we've seen him on those intermediate, routes, in-breaking routes. Really good at those 10 to 15-yard, just easy first down gains almost for Stetson, where Rosemy-Jacksaint was like the third read. full field read from Stetson, just hits him on the backside on the dig. We've seen that from him. I want to see him over the top, be a presence there. And that's why I think Ra Thomas could be some competition. Who's going to take the top off the defense? You have Arian Smith, but you need somebody. Third down, you're in the red zone, 30 seconds to go, like you were against, or I believe it was a minute ago against Ohio State. Who's going to score that touchdown that AD scored? Who's going to do it, Dan? That's my question, and I think that's what Georgia's going to want to figure out.
To be completely honest, I don't know that Georgia has another AD Mitchell on their roster, and that's the one player that's left us over through the transfer portal era. That's the one player who's left where that hurt me. I mean, I loved AD Mitchell. I thought that guy was one hell of a football player, and I hate losing that guy. The way I would look at it is Ra didn't come in here not to play. Okay. And as long as he's healthy, I think he's going to have an opportunity to play. But Rosemy-Jacksaint, I think, did a really good job last year of making really big plays. And I think the one thing that you could say about him is he's very consistent, and he's got very consistent hands. I'm sure he did drop something. But I don't remember like a glaring drop. Maybe there was, and maybe I'm just forgetting, or just recency bias. But I always felt like when they counted on him to make a big play, he did. And I think that really holds water with a coaching staff. So I think he's going to get the first crack at it. I think he's going to get every opportunity. But the one good thing about wide receivers is they do rotate. Like, it's not the same four guys playing the entire game. So all of these guys are going to get opportunities to make plays. And if they make plays when their number is called, they're going to get another opportunity. And, that's like, I had a coach tell me one time, stack opportunities, right? So if I give you an opportunity, make good on it, then you get another opportunity, make good on it, stack opportunities, keep doing well. And the more and more that you do that, the more and more opportunities that you get. And before long, if you're making the play, every time they ask you to make a play, you're going to be a go-to guy. So, have they really done it to the level that AD had done it up to this point? Maybe not. I mean, obviously we don't know with Ra because he's never done it here. He's done it somewhere else. But you got to give these guys an opportunity. And there's so many guys on this roster. Somebody's going to make plays. And like I said, I didn't want to lose AD Mitchell, but I'm sure somebody will have an opportunity to take his place. And Georgia just reloads and repeats, man. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. There were so many guys that we lost in the past, off the national championship team that were like, I don't know how we replace them. And they just did. They just did.
And that's my big question, Dan. Here's my big question. How are we going to replace this guy? And it's Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. That's the two. You have Kamari Lassiter, Keely Ringo, good career at Georgia. I think he got a lot of unwarranted heat, played a lot of top tier talent in college. And yes, he lost some reps, but he also won some. But it's the defensive front, Dan. What are we doing? What is Georgia doing at Jack? What is Georgia doing at defensive tackle? Now, look, you have a lot of unproven production at Jack, outside linebacker specifically. You have some proven production. You have some production up front, especially on the inside of that defensive line. But on the outside linebacker spot, the edge rushing spot, Chaz Chambliss is your most experienced guy. He got a lot of experience last season playing for the injured Nolan Smith and, made some strides. Definitely improved. I want to see him. My one critique of him is I want to see him better as a run blocker. That's where Nolan really separated himself. Doesn't get put up on the stat sheet, but my God, can Nolan Smith set an edge? And that's even being 6'2" and having maybe shorter arms than most would expect. He's not as long as some of these other edge rushers are in the NFL, but God damn, could he stop the damn run, Dan? So you've already mentioned Damon Wilson. Darius Smith is a guy, Dan, that I think might be underrated at this point. Adam Anderson was kind of the comp in the way he moves. Can he come on to this? Like, that's the one thing with some of these outside, edge rushers is Georgia wants these guys to move in space. Can Darius Smith do that? Like, if Darius Smith can do that, then he's going to get on the field.
I had a chance to see him in high school, and when I tell you raw, like, that is probably one of the rawest guys I've ever seen. I remember I called Brooks afterwards, and they're like, yeah, he projects really, really well. He's not there yet. Brooks likes him a lot, so I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, he was like, yeah, like this guy's gonna have to, and he's not scared to go and put in the work. So I'm excited, and like, so please don't take this wrong. I'm not saying the guy can't play. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, coming out of high school, he wasn't as finished as some of these other guys are, but he has pure athleticism, and he has the frame to add the size, and he has the athletic ability. I'm really excited to see what he looks like and see if he's made that jump and he's ready to contribute right now. The one name that never comes up in any of these things, maybe he's not a jack or whatever, but is the and I never can remember his name. But
Marvin Jones. I put him at Sam.
God.
I put him at Sam Backer.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's interchangeable, you know. I mean, Chaz and Marvin, I think can rotate.
I don't.
I'm not a big schematic guy with Georgia, but
I'm going to catch so much heat for this, but I really don't think Chaz is the guy. Like, I don't. I mean, maybe he is, but I think that there are more talented guys on the roster. And he did a good job when he filled in last year. Was he Nolan? The problem was he just wasn't Nolan Smith, right? And it's very hard to say, hey, well, you just weren't Nolan Smith. But do they have other guys on the roster who are that talented, right? Like, I mean, the one thing about Chaz that you could say is that he is a blue collar guy, right? He is a hardworking guy. He's very athletic, right? He could do a good job, but like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 100% wrong. I've never been around the kid. I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out my opinion. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if he's got that special athleticism that some of these younger kids have. And I mean, the one thing that we do know is he's willing to work his ass off, and he will fight tooth and nail to keep that job. And my whole point of this is I just think it's going to be very hard for him to stave off some of these guys that are just athletic freaks. And Georgia's been bringing in athletic freak after athletic freak. So please don't take it the wrong way. I'm not disrespecting Chaz. I'm just saying there's so many guys that we've brought in there are athletic freaks. It's going to be so difficult to hold on to that spot. But then again, you can say that for every position.
And that's another seniority versus newcomer thing. Georgia has a lot of unproven experience, a lot of unproven products in that room. Chaz got to fight it off, but right now he is the leader in that room. Even if he loses his job, he's going to be a guy they look to, to see how Georgia does things off the edge. Jalen Walker is an interesting case. Coming out of high school, I thought he was an inside backer, and he may still be an inside backer, Dan, but that room is loaded. Inside backer's loaded, and yes, Jalen Walker's talented, probably can play at inside backer, definitely can play an inside backer, but he's been kind of a sub-package edge rusher for Georgia. I've put him behind Marvin Jones Jr. at Sam. Could he play Jack? I don't know. There's better people out there to ask that question to. I'm just giving you my opinion off of what I've seen. Brooks Austin does a great job. He can tell you that. Go over his platform and ask him. But Jalen Walker, Marvin Jones Jr., I think the three, combined with Chaz Chambliss, the three can rotate, can play either position. I think that's something we're going to see this year. But my biggest concern, Dan, is the experience. Where is Georgia going to get sacks? Because the more time a quarterback has in the pocket, as we saw against LSU when Georgia played LSU in 2019 with Joe Burrow was sitting back in the pocket for so dang long. And LSU had talented receivers, NFL receivers, Dan, but Georgia had NFL DBs. Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, just two names right off the top of my head.
You can only cover for so long, brother.
For so long. And, Georgia got burned. So they gotta get pressure. That's my takeaway here. I'm looking at Warren Brinson. That's a guy that he's a flash player. He's gonna show up on tape. He's gonna have a really good rep. But can he do it consistently? Can he do it at a high level? Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, Dan, I believe you're high on him. I really like him. He's not gonna just play defensive tackle. He's probably gonna play some 5-tech. That Trayvon Walker role. I really like the names we have in this room, Dan. I just need to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah, and I think you got those two newcomers coming in, and the one thing about the defensive line is if you're big enough, you can play early, right? I mean, that's a lot of times with like offensive line. It takes a special type of player to play offensive line in the SEC right away, right? Like you can be big, but like, are you strong enough? And you can say, oh, well, they're really strong. Well, there's a difference between being 18, 19-year-old strong and being 21-year-old strong. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. Like there's a big difference between being man strong. And like, that's why when it happens, when a guy starts as a true freshman, like Andrew Thomas or Smith, the guy was, what's his name? The one that started at Tennessee his first year. He was a local product. Anyway, he went to Tennessee, started up there. And then the one kid at Alabama that started as a true freshman on the offensive line. Like, when you do it,
you take notice.
Absolutely, because it's not easy to do. Well, that's the one thing about the defensive line. But if you're 330 pounds, you're 330 pounds. And sometimes as a defensive lineman in certain scenarios, all you really have to do is take up space, clog up a hole, just don't get moved. And if you're heavy enough, you can do that. And Georgia has gone out and gotten some pretty big dudes, big jaws, not a little guy. And then neither is Jordan Hall. They're not little guys. I think Jordan Hall is getting a lot of buzz about being as athletic as, I mean, and I know it's blasphemy, but like, the one thing about Jalen Carter that we heard a lot of when he was coming into University of Georgia is how athletic he was, right? How he was very athletic with his size. And I think, Hall is also like that. So I just think with those defensive linemen, are they finished products? Are they ready to be, Jalen Carter? Are they ready to be, Jordan Davis? Probably not. But if they're big, if they're just big, sometimes you can get on the field really early because it's hard to move you. And that's all we're asking you to do is take up space, occupy blockers so that my linebackers can run free and not get caught up in the trash. So I think, I know you're very concerned about the defensive line, but they've brought in a lot of mass. And, to be a good run defense, you have to be able to plug up those holes. And sometimes all you have to be is big. Now, obviously, they're going to develop. Trey Scott has done a fantastic job with that defensive line. But I'm not as worried about the defensive line as you are. I think the one thing that I would be concerned about is the rotation, guys running out of gas. Do you have enough? And that's why I feel like those two young guys are going to have to be ready to play because, what is the one thing the big guys get? It's tired. I mean, like, I don't care how much you run, how much in shape you are, but man, when you're that big, you get tired a little bit early. So we need guys. So I think if you were going to be concerned, that would be the one thing, Harrison, is that you got to have a bunch of them.
Got to have a bunch of them, and you got to be able to execute. Got to be technically sound. Got to do your job. As Kirby Smart says in the locker room. Dan, let's wrap it up here real quick. Last few notes here. I will somehow, some way, we'll get this out. We covered star. Let's talk corner a little bit. We talked AJ Harris. We talked Nyland Green briefly. This is the matchup that I'm really watching. The last hole in Georgia's secondary is Nyland Green versus Dalen Everett versus Jillian Humphrey versus AJ Harris. Who's going to win this? Who's going to win that second cornerback outside corner job next to or opposite of Kamari Lassiter? I don't know. If you're betting, if you're a betting man and you had to put money on someone to start week one, I'd go with the veteran. I'd go with Nyland Green. He's been in the room, highly touted coming out of high school, but so are the people he's competing with. Dalen Everett got on the field early last year. Got on the field a lot. Got a lot of experience. Even with Keely Ringo and Kamari Lassiter ahead of him, that should tell you something. That should tell you that this guy's talented. Julian Humphrey, we didn't see much of him, but he's a guy that's right in the fold there. Everybody that Georgia's recruited that has stars with their name is competing for that job on the outside corner spot. Dan, a lot of people are high on Nyland Green. Ball skills is a double plus with him. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. But it could be a case of, hey, if you don't lock this job down, if you don't play consistent, we got some young guys behind you that, could take your job.
Well, the only real negative that we've heard from Nyland Green is consistency. That was the one thing that was coming out of camp last year from all the people who were around, was that it would be one play was like, oh my God. And the next play was like, oh my God. So it was a high and a low, high and a low. And we know the one thing Kirby wants defensively is consistency, right? He wants that consistency. He wants to make sure that you understand your job. And, we haven't talked at all about that documentary that came out. How about Them Dogs or whatever it was called, or Them Dogs or whatever it was called. But, I really loved the little bit of insight that you got as to Kirby coaching these DBs was, just like the way he was talking to them and like the detail, the focus and stuff like that. So and the other thing too is toughness, right? The one thing that Kirby preaches over and over and over is toughness. And, the one thing that a lot of DBs don't like to do is stick their nose in the run game and make a big hit. Fortunately for Georgia, they have been recruiting kids that love to hit, and that hasn't been a problem for us. But if you look at a lot of these high end, I guess it is changing a little bit, right? Where you don't see the guys who only want to cover anymore. Like most of them, like even Sauce Gardner, right? Like with the Jets, like the one thing, he's super fast and he's really good in coverage, but he'll come up and make a hit. And all of Kirby's guys will come up and make a hit. But I really feel like the one of the biggest things that's going to set this apart is who's going to come downhill and knock the piss out of you. Because I really feel like Kirby and Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann and all the guys on the defensive staff, they really value that, like somebody who will come down and just knock the piss out of you. But you have to be able to cover, you have to be able to run, you have to be able to understand your assignments. The secondary is wide open, dude. It's wide open. I really feel like there's a lot of opportunities for some guys to make some plays. I'm really excited to watch it. I think kind of last year, coming off the national championship, we had some questions. They were answered very, very quickly, and we were settled very, very quickly. And I have a feeling that's going to happen again.
Absolutely. I think it is. I mean, from the first scrimmage, from the onset of the first fall camp scrimmage, we're going to know kind of where the guys are, who's going to be the guy, who's going to be this and that. We're going to know who the quarterback is. We pretty much already do. But, like Dan said, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't announce it because that's just kind of the way things go. Dan, that's going to wrap it up for episode 94 of this Hop Talk podcast. Guys, I don't think you're going to find a more in-depth fall camp preview, at least in the Georgia space. Not right now. I could be biased, probably am biased, definitely am biased. But we appreciate you being here. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. We're gonna try it. We're trying something new. We have a new format. Me and Dan and I have talked about it. We want to get some more quick hitters out for you. We want to get more content out to you, whether that's clipping the show and making it smaller segments, more digestible things, because I believe it was like 85% of our views from last week have come afterwards. So we appreciate you. Whether you're here live, like Sacred Grove, dude, come on back, man. Awesome commenter. We appreciate you. Zach, Jeremiah, Jonathan, we appreciate y'all as well. Anybody, Rudes, you're not here tonight, but I'm sure you'll be listening at some point this week. We appreciate y'all. Make sure to like, subscribe. We're going to have some more content every Tuesday, 7:30. We want to be live. We will be live. But if life happens, Dan and I will work to get a show to y'all. Really appreciate y'all.
And we love to be interactive, guys. So, follow our Twitters. Go ahead and put that on the screen. Follow our Twitters at Dan Kiley 3, at Harrison Reno. If you have any show ideas or you have something that you want to hear, something you want us to talk about, drop it in there. Pop off in the comments. We try to do a good job of making sure that we're reading through the comments during the show. If you touch on something that we haven't thought of, we're going to throw it in there. If you give an opinion, we're going to throw it in there. We'll ask you guys for some interaction sometimes, like, which side do you think's to play early? So, here, are you seriously doing that to me right now? This is like
I was
where she's like,
through it.
Wrap it up. Anyway, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Like, subscribe, follow us, and as always, go Dogs.